within Roman society. Right, first of all, you've got Gnosticism. Now, you'll have heard it mentioned in everyday society as well. People say I'm a Gnostic, and they don't often, understand what they actually mean. Now, this is a system of things, and remember, a lot of these ideas have come from the Greek culture as well. This is a system of thinking which promotes salvation by knowledge. So Gnostic felt that God was too great and too holy to have created the material world with all of its badness and corruption. If mankind wishes to obtain salvation, he has to renounce the material world and seek the invisible world. So this philosophy calls for a dedication to a primitive life, getting rid of all the mud corns type thing. And some people took it that far that they're called a cynic, which is where I got the word cynic from. And in Greek, a cynic means dog. That means you live like a dog. So basically, if you were a Gnostic, you're sort of giving up the material world and all that it is to try and seek the invisible world. Yeah, you okay with that one? Not okay. Neoplatonism. This is based on the principles of Plato, the Greek philosopher. This taught that the spirit is considered to be inevitably good, but the body is inherently evil. So you've got a good spirit, but a bad, evil body. Salvation consists in eliminating all your bodily desires and gradually retreating from your life dependent on sensation and move towards a life of the spirit, which will finally be achieved at death. When you die, the body's evil influence will cease and the true spiritual life will blossom. Yeah? Remember, this is a thinking or a philosophy. Now, Neoplatonism went beyond that teaching of Plato and teaches that the attainment of a spiritual life can't be reached by your intellect, but by a mystical absorption into the infinite. Since no reasoning can attract God, only feeling can establish communication with him. So, a true believer in the philosophy here would regard the union of God and man, deity and flesh, as something which isn't achieved, it's unthinkable, just can't achieve it. The atonement of God is unnecessary, since no act which took place in the material world could ever leave any effect on the real world. The resurrection of the body would be a hideous mistake, since it would only perpetrate the evil of material existence. It's a bit wordy, I know, but are you getting the general idea of what that's saying? Right. Epicureanism, this is a different philosophy. This teaches that the highest goal is pleasure. Pleasure is defined as the absence of physical and mental pain. Pleasure is serenity and peace of mind. This teaches that everything should be geared to removing pain and gaining pleasure. Pleasure is gained by removing oneself from society and just living quietly with a few friends. So it's not quite eat, drink and be merry philosophy, because if you drank the next day you'd have a headache and that would bring pain. But let's sort of cut to the chase a little bit here. These are sort of strong philosophies, but if we put them into modern day life, what that's basically saying is life's worth living. If you've got it, flaunt it. These type of things, So these type of people, and we might have been that type of person ourselves, or we know people who are like it, people who say, life's for now, today's the day, life's for living, let's get some pleasure today type thing, And the other philosophies, people who are saying, well, I don't believe in God, I just believe in, material things, or some people saying, I don't believe in material things, I'm going to give all of that up and just live a life without material things, I don't need them. And this is where you get all these sort of mystic sort of religions from, Any comments on any of that up to now? If you get your brain around that one, isn't straight after your dinner. Now another one here, there's a few as we go through them. Stoicism, a Stoic taught that all the universe has its origin in and is governed by reason. So the supreme duty of man is to live according to reason and accept everything that comes your way, good or bad. Everything that happens to you is for the good of the universe, basically. So you've got this sort of, the people who believe in like Mother Nature and that sort of thing, it's almost like a Star Wars type, the Force type thing, the Force will lead to the good and bad, and you've got the good and all of this sort of. What I'm trying to say, you can see where some of these philosophies lead to, and from there, it doesn't matter what you believe, as long as you believe in something, because it all works out in the end, type thing.
Yeah.
So say how these philosophies come in everyday life, yeah? So the Stoicism teaches all men are equal and brothers, and we've got a back page to this one, yeah? Yeah. And it gets you, these are people who really, a Stoic would often get involved in society because they believe that everything that you do is for the good of the universe. Obviously they want to do things in order to benefit society. So these people often ended up high up and sort of rulers within the Roman Empire and society. But a person who believes in this, a person who believes in Neoplatonism is going to, or Epicureanism, is going to shut himself up in the house. If a person believes that everything you do contributes to the universe, then they're going to contribute, Right, another one is cynicism. This evolves from a teaching of Socrates, another Greek philosopher. He taught that the man with simple needs can usually survive under conditions which would frustrate completely one with elaborate wants. So what they're basically saying there is, and I'm just reading it to you, trying to get it a little bit easier. In order to be independent of all desire, they sought to abolish desire. So they're trying to get to a place where they don't desire anything. So some people who just say, I'm not going to follow fashion, I'm not going to do that, I'm not going to... So that type of person, I'm just not going to... It's not right to want things, type thing. Now another philosophy is the skeptic or skepticism. People often say, well, I'm skeptical of that, These argue that knowledge rests upon experience. And that customs in one country can be different in another. So what they're basically saying there is in their own logic, that they're basically saying that God is the beginning of all thinking, but you don't really need God. And they're trying to deal with intellect. They argue that knowledge rests upon experience. Do we know people in modern society who would say they don't believe in God, but they believe that knowledge is everything? Well, of course, the Bible talks about ever learning and never coming to the truth there,
I was thinking I'm someone
but there's lots of, going through their own logic. Right. It's a bit hard to look at these and really understand them, just in a couple of minutes. These are popular philosophies in Roman times, but they're unsatisfactory because they're too abstract for the ordinary man to grasp. They're a bit abstract for us to grasp as well. The reasoning always ends at a dead end, and the philosophy isn't successful in the quest for truth. And what happens is, the answer to the dilemma of philosopher throughout the ages lies in this answer. John 1:14 says, the Word was made flesh and dwelt among us, and we beheld his glory, the glory as of the only begotten of the Father, full of grace and truth. The answer to all of those philosophies is Jesus, the fact that God was manifest in the flesh.
Mm-hmm.
We're all looking for, should I think this, should I do that, should I get involved in that, should I believe in the universe? That's all airy-fairy sort of beliefs, isn't it, Right, okay. I'm looking at a handout that's a couple of pages long, and it's in type print, and it says the religious world of the Greco-Roman world.
It's kind of a grey. It's a different colour.
Yeah, the religious world of the Greco-Roman world. I'm not going to read this with you. I'm going to ask you to read it in your own time. It's a 4-page thing in sort of type, being typed on a typewriter there. This talks about the Roman Pantheon. It talks about emperor worship, and it talks about what we've touched on a little bit about the mystery religions. So I'm not going to read that with you. I'm going to ask you to read that in your own time. It also mentions on one page as well, mentions on page 3, the worship of the occult and where that came from. So this handout starts off the religious world, the Greco-Roman world, the Greco-Roman Parthenon, emperor worship, the mystery religions, and the worship of the occult. So try and read that in your own time. I don't want to go through that now. Right, let's break it down and let's just simplify it a little bit. We're looking first of all at the advantages of being in the Roman Empire for Christianity, because we're talking about church history and we're looking at how Christianity grew. We'll hand out these, got a pretty big print on them to give you the finding. Advantages of the Roman Empire for Christianity. Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Right, first of all, the religious toleration of Judaism. It's not like some societies, not like during World War II, where where Adolf Hitler and the whole culture there was against the Jews and all of that. There was a toleration of them here, so that's good for Christianity. And the spirit of the age was such that when the empire is corrupt, they're spiritually and morally bankrupt. In Roman society, in the Roman Empire and Roman society, there are 60 million slaves. You've all watched movies like Gladiator and stuff like that, There are 60 million, or Pompeo, things like that, 60 million Roman slaves who long for something better. And Christianity gives them hope. These philosophies didn't give them hope. Can't understand them, they don't need anyone. But Christianity is a hope for them. What were the disadvantages though? I should have these on the other side there, on the right. Disadvantages of the Roman Empire for Christianity. Religion supreme.
No.
Your religion has to be compatible with the state, otherwise you are considered an atheist. And this idea of worshipping it. If you get to a point where you're not following the laws, where you're not worshipping the emperor and that when you need to, then that's where you're going to clash. Because that's where the law and that comes in. So you've got to follow the state religion and do what's meant to be done type thing. Right, let's just slow down a little bit before we finish. And let's have a look at what life and worship was like in the post-apostolic era. So that's the next handout. Life and worship in the post-apostolic era. Now you need to get a system where you put all your handouts to one side when we read them. Should get easier to find. Life and worship in the post-apostolic era.
Things that characterised the church and carried over in post.
Are you there?
This one.
You can't have that many sheets left. We've read most of them. Life and worship in the post-apostolic era. Right, I'll have to move on to run out of time, yeah?
Right, we've got that.
So number one, so this is what the church is like. So Jesus has died on the cross, disciples, some of them are around, some of them not, and then it's that generation and the generation after them. What was it like to be a Christian in those times? So number one, the worship on Sunday before dawn. Services are informal and open. They're loosely structured, with members of the congregation contributing as they're led by the Holy Spirit. And the service is often structured like the synagogue style, because that's what they used to. So they have readings from Scripture, they've got the Hebrew Psalms, they've got a sermon, they have the gifts of the Spirit, spiritual utterances, people saying things there, and they've got communion. Now, a Wednesday and a Friday are fast days. The Jews fasted on Monday and Thursday, so they changed the days in order to show that they were different. Now they're not Jews anymore. But they still think that fasting is important. Public prayer consists of people standing with their hands raised and outstretched. Most prayers are spontaneous, but they did recite the Lord's Prayer. It's customary to pray 5 times a day: daybreak, mid-morning, noon, mid-afternoon and evening. And like we said, they do follow the Lord's Supper because Jesus instituted that, didn't he? Mm-hmm. They continue breaking bread. Acts 2:42 will tell you. This was done frequently after the evening meal. And the purpose is twofold. The agape or love feast, they would share ordinary food. That's for fellowship with one another. And they have the Eucharist, that's their fellowship with God. Now, what happens in Corinth is the rich and the poor were separated for the ordinary meal. And this meal was done away with, and the Eucharist was just held once a week on Sunday morning. And people like Paul, challenge things like that. The fact that the rich and poor are different. Three things that characterised the early church and carried over in the post-apostolic times. So characteristics of the early church at the time of the apostles and then after them. 3 things here. Number 1 is simplicity. Organisation is simple. Dress and all of that is simple. There's purity. People are trying their best to be pure. And there's love. Yeah?
Yeah.
Any questions about any of that?
No.
Yeah, you okay? Right. It sounds hunky-dory, but what does happen is that there is going to be persecution. We know that there was persecution. If you want an interesting read the Fox's Book of Martyrs, and it tells you how the apostles and other people died. Fox's Book of Martyrs, if you want a bit of an interesting read. I've got a copy if anyone wants to borrow it sometime.
Foxes?
Fox's Book of Martyrs, it's called. I'm not saying you have to read that, just if you want to read out of interest. It tells you how the disciples died and then other people died. Some very ingenious ways of killing people, basically.
Where would I get that?
Any bookshop will have that.
Any bookshop?
Yeah, you might even be able to get a copy online, but I've got a copy if you don't know.
There might be
Don't
one
have to
here.
get it on.
I don't do online things.
There might be one here.
You know what? There'll be one in the library.
Right.
I imagine.
There'll be at least one copy in that library, I'll tell you that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll speak to Sister Kelly.
So let's have a look. The 3 sources of persecution. Where does the persecution come from? It sounds like it's hunky-dory. So, they're meeting in the houses. Some of them have met with Jesus, or some of them have met people who have been with Jesus, or there might be relatives of people who have been around. They're breaking away from Judaism. They're having their own simple meetings. They're sharing the word. They're trying to be pure. They're trying to love one another. They're trying to eat together. Trying to, have the breaking of bread and that together. Society is okay with them as long as they don't sort of outwardly stand out too much from the state religions and that. But there is persecution. There's got to be. Otherwise, it wouldn't. We always say like that Acts cycle, don't we? You've got to have persecution and praise and power, and it leaves you around prayer because that leads you back to God. One of the big sources of persecution was Judaism. The Jews don't like these thousands and thousands of people converting to this different religion and moving away from there. They feel condemned. It splits families, it splits cultures. They're fasting on these days, but they're fasting on different days, and they're changing things. And so there's a lot of persecution from Jewish society, of course, The pagan population in Asia Minor, Greece and Turkey and all of that, a lot of those don't understand it, they persecute them. People like Paul and that, even though he was greeted well and had a good reception a lot of the time, there are often times where the people want to kill him.
Mm-hmm.
And the Roman government, there are times where politically the Christians are okay, and there are times where politically they're not okay, depending on what the emperor wants to do or what the politics are at the time. Let's have a look at reasons why people in Asia Minor persecute the Christians. That's another handout. So reasons why people in Asia Minor persecute the Christians. So we're talking about like Greece and Turkey and places like that. Christians are accused of using arson, burning things. They accuse the Christians of treason because they refuse to worship the emperor and be involved in the mystery and state cults. They accuse them of being atheists because they don't put an image in that Parthenon, that idea of the mystery religions I was telling you about. They accuse them of cannibalism because they partake in the Lord's Supper when it says eat my body and my blood and that. They believe that the cannibals. They accuse them of immorality because the meetings are held at night, and when the Bible says about loving one another and all of that, they're trying to twist and pervert that idea. They're accused of being haters of the human race because they don't take part in sports and the gladiator things and the feasts and all of that, because they don't take part in society's things. They're accused of using magic. They're accused of being destroyers of society because they don't worship the God. But really, just like now, in actuality, I've got the bottom there, the Christians were persecuted because their lifestyle often condemned those around them. People feel guilty when they see the way you live. Sometimes they feel guilty about the way they live, so they're trying to attack you instead. And this is where we get the things called the catacombs, and I've been to Rome and looked at them. People living underneath. There were times where Roman society did try and kill them and that, Right, I need to move on to finish. Advantages of persecution. You have got these handouts, don't worry if you can't, I'll just talk you through, but you have got them. Advantages of persecution. It purges the church, it separates good from bad. The ones who can't hack it just go back into society. It'll be on the back of one the other. It bonds the members more closely together. Don't worry if you haven't got it. You'll get the gist of it. And it causes them to disperse and carry the gospel with them. Forget about trying to look for it, you'll just get the idea of it. Basically, when a church is persecuted, it separates the real ones from the pretend ones.
Mm-hmm.
It brings the ones who stop closer together. And it causes, when you spread out, it causes the gospel to be spread. Well, when you flee away, it causes it to be spread, Right, what you've also got in front of you there, just to finish off, you've got a sheet that says Pliny to Trajan, and you've got another one that says what a pagan thought of the Christians. What we've got here is different Roman commanders and Roman citizens, people in charge. Pliny the Younger is a governor, and he's writing to Trajan, who's the emperor, and he's telling him what he notices about these Christians. So what I'd like you to do is have a read of that in your own time. It's interesting to see what the Romans thought about this Christian society that was springing up. What I have got in your handouts is we've got a self-help sheet. We've got a thing that says Church History Research Paper, or you should have somewhere. That'll tell you what's expected in I'll give you another copy of that sometime if you haven't got it. That'll tell you what's expected in your paper and your denomination. But what I want to finish off with is the sheet that says 10 general persecutions by the Roman government. So we'll just finish off with that one. 10 general persecutions by the Roman government. So different governments, different people there. It goes through their dates, Nero, Trajan, different people. Nero, you'll have heard of Nero, fiddled by Rome, burnt. Basically, massive persecution from him. He ordered Rome to be burnt as he stood in a tower playing a harp and singing. Fiddled as Rome burnt sort of thing. He wanted everything to be ruined because he wanted to blame the fire on the Christians and to blame up himself. Nero also sewed Christians up in leather bags, threw them into the arena for the dogs to eat. He put tar in them, tied them to a cross and set fire to them. And he put them in his garden for torches at night. So I'm looking at the sheet, 10 general persecutions by the Roman government. On the back of that, under Nero, on a separate page, under Nero, Paul lost his head, Peter was crucified upside down. Other notable Christians were killed at that time as well. Talks about different torture. That's where Christians fled and met under the catacombs, under the tunnels under Rome. And Trojan, this says they persecuted Christians because they refused to take part in thanksgiving services for the gods after victories in battle. But what happens is, as they're all saying here, if you live by the sword, you'll die by the sword. Lots of these emperors themselves die horrible deaths, and it talks about some of that deaths there. Nero fled from his subjects because he revolted against his leadership. He committed suicide by stabbing himself. Domitian was assassinated by his servants, prompted by his wife. Marcus Aurelius starved himself. I think he's the one mentioned in Gladiator, if you're interested. Septimus Severus died of despair after his son tried to kill him. Venius was killed in a swamp. Valerian cut up into strips by the king of Persia. Aurelian was assassinated, another one starved himself. Okay, I've run over time. You've got plenty of handouts there. Get a chance to have a read of them. Any questions before I go?
No. This is for the whole. This is for whole subject and all this. I will give you a handout.
Right, you've got plenty to look at there, so you've got to, I'll let you have the rest of your break because I've run over a little bit. God bless you, and I'll see you next time.
Thank
God bless you. Bye.
Stop the going was when he's going out.
I could get a
I'm
break.
going to get close.
It's so obvious because of everyone. That's the wrong one.
We're going to buy numbers now, isn't it?
So they
Here,
came
buy
through.
up with the 5.
All the Americans.
All the Americans I can do
Oh.
second thing. Step 2. So which one?
Doesn't help.
I think it's
Yes, please.
Yeah. Well, I might as well skip that.
I don't know.
Not mine.
Oh, there's Chrissy's red.
Elizabeth,
Hello.
well, when it was clear at here, he's been doing it first year.
Hi. How are you?
You want to read?
I'm saying, how are you?
Good.
Maria, what,
Yeah?
what happened with the mascara? How did I order that?
Did you order one?
No, I didn't, because I wasn't sure how you wanted to get me to get the money to you.
All right. Well, I've got to order one in this week.
She's got an order this week.
All right, I'll put it into Facebook then. I'll kind of.
Right.
It was like
Yeah.
I think it was 2 for £20 or something. Something like that. Because I had asked you, would you recommend one, a waterproof one?
I think, yeah, I remember now.
How do I get the money to you though?
Bank transfer, any good?
I can do that, aye, if you give me your details I can
Yeah.
transfer it.
I'll inbox you later.
Right, no bother.
What else do you do? Do you do candles and things like that?
No, I think it's just me.
No, I've got scarves and handbags and I've never noticed any candles in the catalogue.
Right, because I don't do makeup.
I mean, they may have come in over the Christmas period, I don't know yet.
I don't do makeup.
I do.
A simple reason, I do not suit makeup.
Now, how do you know?
I do not suit makeup, no.
I do.
Honestly, I do not suit makeup.
Well, what about skincare?
Aye. I'll look in it.
That's what I like mainly, the skincare. I look after my skin first.
Right, because
Try to keep the wrinkles under control.
the expression is I look like a who in distress with makeup on.
Oh, but
I
you
do.
don't.
I do. Honest, I do. I really do.
It puts just a little bit powder on or something.
No, doesn't matter. I can't put powder on anyway, it clogs my skin. I'm a very sensitive person.
Oh, bless. Oh, give her a big hug.
Pat on the head. Oh.
But what I'm going to tell you, Mary, I'm into my feet. I've got very bad feet. Have you got anything for feet?
Oh, yes, I've got loads of stuff for feet.
Right, you're on.
I definitely recommend the feet stuff,
Right.
definitely.
Okay.
Well, having that later, ladies.
Right.
Bye.
Go to the girls' room now.
So, Ma.
Oh my god, I couldn't believe that. I'm surprised you didn't see me. I'm like going forward. I'm like, I go to the toilet. What time? Eh? What time was the thing made at? The prayer meeting? Was it 6 or 7?
I think it's 7. So we can go for something to eat.
Alright. I think Shan was in with it.
No.
She's all tea. She's got. I think it's going to be Vishy. Vishy's just on time somewhere. She's going to be Vishy. It's not a lot to get.
It's new. It's the fucking stallions one to see.
What in here?
No, I don't think so. I
No,
think this is
he,
what it
he
is.
comes from Vishy, so but he's written up.
Okay, I said that.